The poor cleaner's 8-year-old daughter answers an 866 meters Arabic call, shocking the millionaire. What he does will break your heart. Before we get into the topic, if this video reached you at the right moment, let us know with a simple comment. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more content that connects with you. The mid-morning sunlight slanted through the windows of the Davidson Tower penthouse as Nancy Rodriguez wiped sweat from her brow. 6 hours into her shift, her hands were red and raw from the industrial cleaning products. At 42, her body complained more each year, but she couldn't afford to slow down, not with Emma's tutoring bills to pay. "Miss Rodriguez, where are those files I asked for?" Nancy flinched at Mr. Davidson's sharp tone. The billionaire investment broker stood in his office doorway, his tailored Italian suit worth more than her yearly salary. "Sir, I'm the cleaning lady. Your assistant stepped out for coffee." Robert Davidson glanced at her as if seeing her for the first time. "Right. Well, when she returns, tell her I need the Alfarsi portfolio immediately." Nancy nodded, returning to scrubbing the marble floors. The penthouse offices of Davidson International gleamed with wealth. Crystal chandeliers, gold-framed artwork, and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Manhattan. It was another world from her cramped 2-bedroom apartment in Queens, where she and Emma survived on her multiple cleaning jobs. The elevator chimed, and Nancy's heart skipped. Emma appeared, clutching her worn backpack. "Mama, school let out early. Water pipe broke." The 8-year-old bounded toward her, dark pigtails bouncing. "Emma, shh," Nancy whispered, glancing nervously at Davidson's office. "You know you shouldn't come here." "But Miss Wilson dropped me off. She said it was on her way." Nancy sighed. Her neighbor meant well, but one complaint from Davidson and Nancy could lose this job. "Stay quiet and sit in the break room until I finish, okay?" Emma nodded solemnly, but her wide brown eyes were already wandering across the luxurious office. Nancy returned to her work, scrubbing faster. Just 30 more minutes and they could leave. Then the phone rang. Not the regular office line, but the special red phone on Davidson's desk. The private line for his most important clients. "Where is everyone?" Davidson bellowed from the conference room. Nancy glanced at the empty reception area. Davidson's assistant was still out, and his partners had left for lunch. The phone continued its insistent ring. "Emma, don't touch anything," Nancy warned, hurrying to tell Davidson about the call. But before she could reach the conference room, Emma had picked up the red phone. "Davidson International, how may I help you?" the little girl said in perfect professional English. Nancy froze in horror. That line was reserved for billionaire clients and royal investors. Davidson would fire her on the spot. Then something extraordinary happened. Emma's expression changed, and she began speaking fluent Arabic. "Naam, Sayyid al-Farsi. Assalamu alaikum. Kaifa haluka?" Emma continued confidently, nodding as if she'd been conducting international business her entire life. Nancy stood paralyzed as Robert Davidson emerged from the conference room, his face contorting in shock and fury at seeing a child on his private line. He lunged toward Emma, but then stopped abruptly when he heard her speaking. Emma switched seamlessly to English. "Mr. Davidson is unavailable at this moment, but I'd be happy to take your information." She grabbed a notepad and began writing, then returned to Arabic. Davidson's expression transformed from anger to astonishment. He turned to Nancy, his mouth open but no words coming out. After several minutes, Emma said, "Shukran jazilan, Mr. Al-Farsi. Mr. Davidson will call you back personally within the hour. Ma salama." She hung up the phone and smiled brightly. "Mama, that was Mr. Khalid Al-Farsi from Saudi Arabia. He says the deal is ready and the $866 million will be transferred once Mr. Davidson calls him back with the final approval codes." The color drained from Davidson's face as he stared at the 8-year-old girl in her faded jeans and unicorn t-shirt. "How?" he began, his voice barely a whisper. How does she know Arabic? Before Nancy could answer, Emma replied, Mama taught me. I know 7 languages now. Arabic, Spanish, French, Mandarin, Russian, Portuguese, and English, of course. She beamed with pride, unaware of the bombshell she'd just dropped. Davidson's gaze shifted to Nancy, seeing for the first time not a cleaning lady, but something else entirely, something that would change all their lives forever. You have 5 minutes to explain, he said. Nancy's hands trembled as she sat across from Robert Davidson in his private office. Emma waited outside with a tablet Davidson had given her, watching cartoons with oversized headphones. I'm sorry about the phone, Mr. Davidson. I'll pack my things, Nancy said, eyes downcast. That's not what I asked, Davidson replied, leaning forward. Your daughter just saved an $866 million deal with one of the most difficult investors in the Middle East. Khalid Al-Farsi has been wavering for weeks. My Arabic translator quit this morning without notice, and Al-Farsi refuses to speak English on principle. He paused. I want to know how an 8-year-old speaks perfect business Arabic, and apparently 6 other languages. Nancy exhaled slowly. She'd spent years hiding her past, protecting Emma from disappointment. I was a language specialist, Mr. Davidson. Before Emma, before. She gestured to her cleaning uniform. I have a master's degree in linguistics from Georgetown. I was working on my PhD when I got pregnant with Emma. Her father was my professor. When he discovered I was pregnant, he denied everything. I was dismissed from the program. Davidson's expression remained impassive, but his eyes narrowed slightly. With no degree, no recommendations, and a baby coming, I took whatever work I could find, but languages were my life, so I taught Emma from birth. She heard Spanish and English at home, Mandarin and French from recordings while she slept. By 4, she was fluent in 4 languages. By 6 languages. We added Arabic last year. Oh, and you ended up cleaning my office, Davidson said flatly. Nancy lifted her chin. I work 4 jobs, Mr. Davidson. I clean your office in the mornings, tutor high school students in the afternoons, translate documents freelance at night, and clean a medical office on weekends. Emma attends school on scholarship, but even with that, we barely make rent. Davidson was silent for a long moment, studying her. You're wasting your talents, Ms. Rodriguez. I'm surviving, Mr. Davidson, and making sure my daughter has opportunities I lost. Davidson stood abruptly and walked to the window, hands clasped behind his back. The Manhattan skyline stretched before him, a testament to wealth and power. My Arabic translator quit because I refused his salary demands of $175,000 a year. I thought he was being unreasonable. He turned to face her. What's your hourly rate as a cleaner, Ms. Rodriguez? $15, she answered, confused by the shift. That's approximately $31,200 annually, assuming you work full-time, he calculated aloud. For someone with your skills, that's criminal. Nancy bristled. I don't need your pity, Mr. Davidson. Pity? He laughed without humor. Ms. Rodriguez, I'm a businessman. I recognize untapped assets when I see them. You and your daughter just demonstrated value to my company that far exceeds your current compensation. He returned to his desk and pressed a button on his phone. Janet, cancel my afternoon appointments and prepare an employment contract, and find out where Carmichael Academy has its admissions office. Nancy's pulse quickened. What are you doing? Making you an offer, effective immediately. You're no longer my cleaning lady. I want you as my chief multilingual communications specialist. Starting salary $200,000, with benefits and flexible hours so you can be there for Emma. Nancy's world tilted. That's not possible. I just watched your 8-year-old daughter charm Khalid Al-Farsi in his native tongue and save a deal worth $866 million. Nothing seems impossible anymore. His gaze intensified. But there's a condition. There always is, Nancy said cautiously. Emma needs proper education, not just language, but everything. Carmichael Academy is the best private school in Manhattan. They'll nurture her gifts. We can't afford. Davidson International will establish a scholarship for exceptionally gifted children from underprivileged backgrounds. His tone made it clear this wasn't charity, but investment. Why? Nancy asked, suspicion creeping in. Why would you do this? Davidson's expression hardened slightly. Because I recognize potential, Ms. Rodriguez. Your daughter has it, you have it, and I never waste potential. As Nancy struggled to process what was happening, Emma's voice came from the doorway. Mama, can I show Mr. Davidson something? They turned to see Emma standing there, holding a paper with complex characters drawn across it. I wrote down Mr. Al-Farsi's message in Arabic, she said proudly, walking to Davidson's desk. He said there was something important you should know about Mr. Sami. Davidson took the paper, his eyebrows rising as he read. This changes everything. How did you understand the business terminology? Emma shrugged. Mama has me practice with real business documents for her translation jobs. It's like a game. Davidson looked from Emma to Nancy, then back to the note. Ms. Rodriguez, I believe we have a great deal to discuss about your future and your daughters. The Carmichael Academy hallways gleamed with polished marble and old money. Framed photographs of famous alumni, senators, CEOs, and Pulitzer winners lined the oak-paneled walls. As Nancy walked beside Headmistress Winters, she felt painfully out of place in her one good pantsuit, purchased second-hand for job interviews. Carmichael rarely accepts mid-year transfers, Ms. Rodriguez, the headmistress said, her New England accent crisp. But Mr. Davidson's donation was persuasive. Nancy winced. 2 weeks had passed since the phone call incident, and everything had changed at dizzying speed. She now had an office at Davidson International with her name on the door, Nancy Rodriguez, Director of Multilingual Communications. Emma's test scores are certainly impressive, Headmistress Winters continued, but academic excellence is just one aspect of a Carmichael education. Our families typically have established backgrounds. The implication hung between them. People like you don't belong here. They stopped outside a classroom where Nancy could see Emma sitting at a desk, her second-hand clothes standing out among the uniformed children. We've placed her in our accelerated program, Headmistress Winters said. Though her language abilities are exceptional, we've found some concerning gaps in mathematics and sciences. Nancy bristled. She's advanced in both subjects. She helps me balance my checkbook. Yes, well, practical arithmetic differs from academic mathematics, and her social adjustment may be challenging. Our students come from similar backgrounds. They summer in the Hamptons, ski in Aspen. Their references and experiences are shared. Emma is adaptable, Nancy replied, her tone sharpening, and brilliant. We'll see, the headmistress said with a thin smile. Mr. Davidson has arranged for her uniform and supplies. They'll be delivered tomorrow. Until then, we'll make allowances for her. Current attire. Nancy bit her tongue. This was for Emma's future. She could endure condescension for that. Later that afternoon, Nancy sat in her new office, struggling to concentrate on translating investment documents. Her phone buzzed with a text from the school. Emma involved in incident. Please come immediately. Heart pounding, Nancy rushed to Carmichael. She found Emma sitting outside the headmistress's office, tear tracks on her cheeks. What happened, Mija? Nancy asked, kneeling beside her. I didn't do anything wrong, Mama, Emma whispered. Alexa said my shoes were from the garbage, and everyone laughed. Then during language class, when I corrected Mr. Benoit's French pronunciation, he got angry. Nancy sighed, wrapping an arm around her daughter's shoulders. The headmistress appeared, her expression severe. Ms. Rodriguez, while we appreciate Emma's linguistic abilities, challenging a teacher's authority is unacceptable at Carmichael. Did my daughter provide incorrect information? Nancy asked calmly. That's not the point. Furthermore, there was an altercation with another student over personal belongings. You mean when a girl mocked my daughter for not wearing designer shoes? Nancy's voice remained steady, though anger simmered beneath. The headmistress's lips thinned. Perhaps Carmichael isn't the right environment for Emma after all. Are you expelling my daughter on her first day? Nancy stood straighter, her professional demeanor falling into place. I wonder what Mr. Davidson would think, considering his substantial donation. The name worked its magic. The headmistress's expression shifted. Of course not. We simply need to establish appropriate behavioral expectations. As they left the office, Robert Davidson himself stood in the hallway, his imposing figure drawing stares from passing students. I received a call about some trouble, he said, eyes moving between Nancy and Emma. Everything's fine, Nancy assured him quickly. Too quickly. Davidson knelt to Emma's level. What happened, young lady? Emma hesitated, looking at her mother for permission. It's okay. Tell him, Nancy nodded. Some kids made fun of my shoes and clothes, Emma said softly, and the French teacher didn't like that I speak better French than him. Davidson's expression darkened momentarily, then cleared. He stood and placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. Intelligence often intimidates people, Emma. Remember that. He turned to Nancy. I have meetings near here all afternoon. Why don't I take Emma to get her school supplies now? Save you a trip. Nancy's protective instincts flared. That's not necessary. I insist. Davidson's smile didn't quite reach his eyes. She'll need everything immediately to fit in. The right supplies, the right clothes. I have an account at all the appropriate stores. Mr. Davidson, I appreciate everything you've done, but it's an investment in my company's future, Ms. Rodriguez. His tone was pleasant, but firm. Emma's education benefits us all. Before Nancy could protest further, Davidson added, We'll be back at the office by 5. You can focus on the Kuwaiti contracts without distraction. Emma looked up at Nancy with hopeful eyes. Please, Mama, I want to fit in tomorrow. Nancy reluctantly agreed, watching as Davidson led her daughter away. Something in the way he placed his hand on Emma's shoulder, possessive, triumphant, sent a chill through her. As they disappeared down the hallway, Nancy couldn't shake the feeling that she was losing control of something precious. As if, in gaining financial security, she was trading away something far more valuable. The Davidson International boardroom hummed with tension. Floor-to-ceiling windows showcased a thunderstorm brewing over Manhattan, mirroring the atmosphere inside. Nancy sat rigid in her new designer suit, heart hammering, as 12 executive board members stared at her presentation. 3 months had passed since Emma answered that fateful phone call. Nancy had transformed from cleaning lady to key executive, her linguistic expertise proving invaluable as Davidson International expanded its Middle Eastern portfolio. But success came with unexpected costs. Ms. Rodriguez, you're suggesting we restructure our entire approach to the Saudi market. Thomas Harrington, the silver-haired CFO, looked skeptical. Based on cultural nuances? Yes, Nancy replied firmly. Our current translation service is technically accurate, but culturally tone-deaf. It's costing us millions in delayed negotiations. Robert Davidson watched from the head of the table, his expression unreadable. Their relationship had evolved into something complex, part mentor, part employer, part something she couldn't quite define. His interest in Emma had only intensified with weekly mentoring sessions that made Nancy increasingly uneasy. The Al-Farsi group has specifically requested Ms. Rodriguez handle all communications moving forward, Davidson said, effectively ending debate. Their $866 million investment has already increased by 12% under her guidance. The executives nodded with new respect. Money spoke the only language they all understood. After the meeting, Davidson asked Nancy to stay behind. "Brilliant presentation," he said, pouring 2 glasses of scotch. "You've exceeded my expectations." "Thank you." Nancy accepted the glass but didn't drink. "Mr. Davidson, there's something we need to discuss about Emma." His expression shifted subtly. "Is there a problem at Carmichael?" "Not with her education. She's thriving academically." Nancy chose her words carefully, "But she mentioned you've discussed taking her to Saudi Arabia for the Al-Farsi negotiations next month." "She'd be an incredible asset," Davidson said smoothly. "Khalid adores her. Having a child prodigy as our cultural ambassador would give us an unbeatable advantage." "She's 8 years old, not an asset," Nancy said, setting down her untouched scotch, "and she needs to be in school, not international business meetings." Davidson's smile cooled. "Nancy, surely you understand what's at stake. The Al-Farsi deal could expand to billions. Emma's gift shouldn't be wasted in a classroom when she could be making history." "By making history, you mean making you money," Nancy replied, tension rising. "I'm grateful for everything you've done for us, but Emma's future is not negotiable." Davidson leaned back, studying her. "You know, when I first saw you scrubbing my floors, I never imagined you'd be sitting across from me in Armani, refusing a request." His tone was light, but his eyes were calculating. "Life changes quickly, doesn't it?" "Some things don't change," Nancy replied. "My priority has always been Emma's well-being." "And you think I don't have her best interests at heart?" Davidson spread his hands. "Look at everything I've provided. The best education, opportunities most children could never dream of. She has a future now." "She always had a future," Nancy said quietly. "Maybe not with wealth or privilege, but with love and integrity." Davidson's expression hardened. "Noble sentiments don't pay Carmichael's tuition or the mortgage on your new apartment." He stood, buttoning his jacket. "Think carefully about your position, Nancy. Everything in your new life exists because I recognize value and reward it accordingly. If Emma's linguistic gifts are no longer available to Davidson International, I would have to reconsider the company's investment in both of you." The threat hung in the air between them. Nancy felt a cold realization wash over her. The golden cage had been there all along. She just hadn't wanted to see the bars. "I need to pick up Emma," she said, rising. "We'll continue this discussion tomorrow." "Of course," Davidson smiled, all business again. "Oh, and Nancy, Emma mentioned she's learning Japanese now. Fascinating coincidence. We're exploring a major acquisition in Tokyo next quarter." As Nancy left the building, the storm broke overhead. She ducked into a coffee shop, hands shaking as she called her old friend Sophia, who'd warned her about Davidson's reputation. "He's using Emma," Nancy whispered into the phone. "I thought he was helping us, but he's just exploiting her talent." Sophia's response was gentle but firm. "You knew who he was, Nancy. Men like Davidson don't give without taking more in return. What do I do? We can't go back to how things were. Emma loves her school, our new home. For the first time, she has opportunities I always dreamed of giving her. The question is, what price are you willing to pay? And more importantly, what price will Emma pay?" As rain lashed the windows, Nancy made a decision. She would find a way to break free from Davidson's influence without sacrificing Emma's future. She just needed time and a plan. Across town, in Davidson's penthouse office, the billionaire made a phone call. "I need information on Nancy Rodriguez's past," he told his private investigator. "Something tells me our miraculous linguist is hiding something that might help me secure her daughter's extraordinary talents permanently." Cherry blossoms drifted across the Carmichael Academy courtyard as parents gathered for the spring showcase. 5 months had passed since Emma had answered that life-changing phone call, and outwardly, everything was perfect. Nancy sat in the front row, her designer dress and carefully styled hair making her indistinguishable from the wealthy mothers around her, at least on the surface. On stage, Emma stood confidently before the assembled parents and administrators. At just 8 years old, she'd become something of a celebrity at Carmichael. Today, she would demonstrate her linguistic abilities by giving the same welcome speech in all 7 languages she knew. My journey began with my mother's voice. Emma started in English, her clear voice carrying across the auditorium. She taught me that languages are bridges between worlds. As Emma transitioned seamlessly into Spanish, then French, then Mandarin, Nancy felt pride swell within her chest, but mingled with that pride was fear. During the past months, Robert Davidson's influence over their lives had grown increasingly controlling. He sat beside Nancy now, applauding enthusiastically as Emma completed her Arabic portion. To everyone else, he appeared the generous benefactor, the visionary who discovered a prodigy from humble beginnings. Only Nancy saw the calculation behind his smiles, the way his eyes tracked Emma like a valuable acquisition. "She's remarkable," Davidson whispered. "The Kuwaiti ambassador asked specifically if she could join our meeting next week." "She has exams," Nancy replied quietly. "I've spoken with Headmistress Winters. It's arranged." Nancy's hands tightened in her lap. This was their new normal. Davidson making decisions about Emma's life, manipulating circumstances so Nancy's objections became moot. After the showcase, a reception was held in the school's grand hall. Wealthy parents swarmed around Emma, asking her to say phrases in different languages, treating her like an exotic exhibit. "Mrs. Rodriguez?" Nancy turned to find Headmistress Winters, approaching with an elegant woman in her 60s. "This is Margaret Whitmore, head of the Global Youth Initiative. She's very interested in Emma's gifts." The woman extended a manicured hand. "Your daughter is extraordinary. We identify exceptional children worldwide for specialized education. Our program would provide Emma with opportunities beyond even Carmichael's resources." Nancy smiled politely. "That's very kind, but Emma is thriving here." "The program is quite selective," Margaret continued. "Only 12 children worldwide are chosen annually. They study at our campus in Switzerland with the world's leading experts in their fields." Switzerland, thousands of miles away. Nancy's suspicion flared. "Did Mr. Davidson introduce you to Emma's case?" Margaret's smile flickered. "He's one of our most generous donors. When he mentioned Emma's abilities, we were naturally interested." Of course, another of Davidson's chess moves, positioning Emma further from Nancy's influence. "I appreciate the opportunity," Nancy said carefully, "but Emma is only 8. She belongs with her mother." "The program begins at age 9, Margaret replied. "We understand family bonds, but exceptional children have exceptional needs. Our campus includes family accommodations for periodic visits." Periodic visits. The words chilled Nancy to her core. "I'll need to think about it," she said, already knowing her answer. Later, as Nancy and Emma prepared to leave, Davidson intercepted them by the entrance. "The Whitmores are hosting a dinner tonight at the Pierre," he said. "Emma should meet their son William. He attended the Swiss program and now studies at MIT, at 14. "We have plans," Nancy lied. "Cancel them," Davidson said, his tone pleasant but firm. "This is important for Emma's future. The application deadline for next year's cohort is approaching." "I haven't agreed to any Swiss program," Nancy replied, keeping her voice low despite her rising anger. Davidson's smile remained, but his eyes hardened. "Nancy, be reasonable. This is an unparalleled opportunity. Most parents would sacrifice anything for such a chance." "That's just it," Nancy said. "I won't sacrifice my relationship with my daughter for any opportunity, no matter how prestigious." Davidson placed a hand on her arm, guiding her slightly away from nearby parents. "Your dedication is admirable, but potentially misguided. Emma's gifts could change the world, but only with proper development. She's a child, not a corporate asset to be developed," Nancy hissed. "Of course, But children grow up. The question is, into what? His grip tightened slightly. Into someone extraordinary with global influence, or someone limited by a mother's fear of letting go. The accusation stung. Nancy pulled her arm away. This conversation is over. Emma and I are going home. Ms. Rodriguez, Davidson's voice dropped, remember your position. The scholarship, your job, the apartment, all can be reassessed if you're not making decisions in Emma's best interest. Before Nancy could respond, Emma appeared at her side, still glowing from her success. Mama, can we get ice cream to celebrate? Nancy forced a smile. Of course, Mija. Davidson knelt to Emma's level. How would you like to have dinner with me tonight? At a fancy hotel with important people who want to meet you. They have a special school in Switzerland where children like you learn amazing things. Emma's eyes widened. Like Hogwarts? Davidson chuckled. Even better. And I've heard their ice cream is magnificent. Emma looked up at Nancy, excitement evident. Can we go, Mama? Trapped, Nancy nodded, watching as Davidson's mask of benevolence slipped back into place. She needed to act soon, before his influence over Emma grew stronger, before Switzerland became a reality. That night, after Emma fell asleep, Nancy made a phone call to Miguel Ortiz, a former colleague from her linguistics days who now worked at the United Nations. I need a way out, Miguel, she whispered. Davidson is trying to separate me from Emma. I need another option, a job where my skills matter, but Emma stays with me. The UN has an opening in the translation department, Miguel replied. The pay won't match Davidson's, but there's a school for diplomats' children with an excellent language program. When can I interview? Next week. But Nancy, be careful. Men like Davidson don't let valuable assets walk away easily. As she hung up, Nancy glanced at Emma's peacefully sleeping form. Whatever came next, they would face it together. No golden cage was worth the price of her daughter's freedom, or her own. The manila envelope arrived at Nancy's apartment on a Tuesday morning, delivered by private courier. No return address, just her name typed on a plain label. Inside was a single photograph. Nancy, 9 years younger, standing outside Georgetown University with Professor James Harlow, Emma's father. A yellow sticky note bore a handwritten message. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., my office. Come alone, R.D. Nancy's hands trembled as she stuffed the envelope into her purse. Davidson had found Harlow. After 9 years of protecting Emma from the truth about her father's rejection, Davidson had unearthed her most painful secret. In his penthouse office the next day, Davidson sat behind his massive desk, morning sunlight casting his features in sharp relief. He didn't rise when Nancy entered, just gestured to the chair across from him. Professor James Harlow, Davidson said, sliding a file toward her. Currently Dean of Linguistics at Cambridge University. Married to Helena Harlow, daughter of British media magnate William Templeton. 2 children, officially. Nancy remained silent, her face carefully neutral despite the churning in her stomach. Harlow's biography conveniently omits his time at Georgetown, Davidson continued, or his affair with a brilliant graduate student named Nancy Rodriguez, or the daughter that resulted from that affair. What do you want, Robert? Nancy asked, her voice steadier than she felt. The UN Translation Department. Really, Nancy? Davidson's smile was cold. Did you think I wouldn't know about your interview next week? Of course he knew. Davidson's network of influence seemed limitless. This is about control, Nancy said. You can't stand that I won't let you turn Emma into your personal corporate asset. This is about potential, Davidson countered. Emma could have everything, the finest education, connections to world leaders, a future beyond anything you could provide on a UN translator's salary. With the small price of being separated from her mother and manipulated by you. Davidson leaned forward. I'm offering you a choice. Option 1. The Switzerland Program. You'll receive a generous compensation package and visitation rights. Emma gets world-class opportunities. Visitation rights to my own daughter. Nancy's voice rose. That's not a choice. Option 2 is less pleasant, Davidson continued, as if she hadn't spoken. Professor Harlow's reputation, marriage and career depend on his carefully constructed image. This file contains DNA evidence of Emma's paternity, plus documentation of how Harlow abused his position with a student, then engineered her dismissal when she became pregnant. Nancy's blood ran cold. You'd destroy him. I'd expose the truth, Davidson corrected, unless he asserts his parental rights and enrolls Emma in the Switzerland program himself. With his family connections, he'd easily gain custody of a child you've kept from him for 8 years. That's not what happened, Nancy whispered. It's his word against yours. A distinguished dean versus a former cleaning lady. Davidson's eyes were pitiless. Who do you think the courts will believe? Nancy's mind raced. Davidson had orchestrated everything from the beginning. The job offer, Carmichael Academy, the accidental meeting with the Swiss program director, all to separate her from Emma. Why? She asked finally. Why Emma? There are other linguistic prodigies. None like Emma, Davidson replied. Her abilities are unprecedented. 7 languages perfectly spoken at 8 years old. She can become anything, a diplomat, an intelligence asset, a corporate negotiator worth billions, but only with the right guidance. Your guidance, Nancy said bitterly. I recognize her potential because I lived it, Davidson said, his voice softening slightly. I was discovered by a businessman who saw past my circumstances. I grew up in the Bronx, Nancy. Foster care. No one wanted me until Jeremiah Davidson recognized my aptitude for numbers and languages. For the first time, Nancy glimpsed something genuine in him, a reflection of his own past in Emma's present. He adopted me, gave me his name, his opportunities. Without him, I'd have been nothing. I'm offering Emma the same chance. There's a difference, Nancy said quietly. Jeremiah Davidson saved an unwanted child from foster care. You're trying to take a loved child from her mother. Something flickered across Davidson's face, doubt, perhaps, or a moment of recognition. You have 1 week to decide, he said finally. Switzerland with your blessing and involvement, or a custody battle you'll lose. Nancy stood, smoothing her skirt with trembling hands. You've thought of everything, haven't you? Except one thing. And what's that? Emma, you've calculated every adult's response, manipulated every circumstance. But Emma is not a pawn, Robert. She's a person, with her own mind and heart. She's a child who'll follow the path set by adults, Davidson replied dismissively. Nancy reached for the door, then paused. Did you ever resent him, Jeremiah, for deciding your life's direction? The question caught Davidson off guard. For a moment, his mask slipped, revealing something wounded beneath. He saved me, Davidson said, but there was a hollowness to the words. At what cost? Nancy asked softly, then left without waiting for an answer. Outside, Manhattan's streets pulsed with midday activity. Nancy walked aimlessly, her mind whirling with impossible choices. She couldn't fight Davidson's legal machine, couldn't bear to see Emma taken by a father who'd rejected her before birth. Couldn't accept Switzerland and periodic visitation. Her phone buzzed with a text from Carmichael Academy. Please come immediately. Incident involving Emma. Nancy's heart lurched as she hailed a taxi. At the school, she found Emma sitting outside the headmistress's office, clutching something in her small hands. What happened, Miha? Nancy asked, kneeling beside her. Emma opened her hands to reveal a beautiful enameled music box. Mr. Davidson gave me this yesterday. It plays a song when you open it. I brought it for show and tell, but when I opened it in class, it started playing a recording of me speaking all my languages instead of music. Everyone was impressed, but then Headmistress Winters got really angry and took it away. Nancy felt ice in her veins. A recording? The headmistress appeared, her expression grave. Ms. Rodriguez, this device contains sophisticated recording technology disguised as a child's trinket. It's been recording everything said in its vicinity and transmitting the data externally. This is a serious violation of privacy laws and school policy. She handed Nancy a business card. This was inside the mechanism. Perhaps you can explain. The card belonged to Margaret Whitmore of the Global Youth Initiative, the Swiss program. Suddenly everything clicked into place. Davidson wasn't just separating Emma from Nancy, he was documenting Emma's abilities for the program application, using her as an unwitting demonstration subject. "Where is the music box now?" Nancy asked. "Our IT department is examining it. We're considering involving authorities." As the headmistress continued about privacy violations, Nancy's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Khalid Al-Farsi requests meeting. Concerns Davidson. Plaza Hotel, 4 p.m. today. Nancy stared at the message. Khalid Al-Farsi, the Saudi businessman whose call Emma had answered months ago. The catalyst for everything that followed. For the first time since the envelope arrived that morning, Nancy felt something beyond fear and despair. She felt a glimmer of hope. "Headmistress Winters, I need to take Emma home now, and I'd like that music box as evidence." Something in Nancy's tone must have conveyed the severity of the situation, because the headmistress simply nodded. As they left Carmichael Academy, Emma looked up at her mother. "Are we in trouble, Mama?" Nancy squeezed her daughter's hand. "No, mija, but we need to be very brave now. We're going to meet someone who might help us." "Who?" "Mr. Al-Farsi, the man you spoke Arabic with on the red phone. Do you remember?" Emma nodded solemnly. "I remember everything, Mama." "Good," Nancy said, raising her hand to hail a taxi, "because it's time for both of us to use everything we know." The Plaza Hotel's opulence seemed to exist in another universe from Nancy's former life. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors while uniformed staff moved with practiced discretion. Emma gripped her mother's hand tightly as they were escorted to a private suite. "Remember, Mija, speak only when spoken to," Nancy whispered. "Mr. Al-Farsi is a very important man." The suite doors opened to reveal Khalid Al-Farsi, tall and distinguished in his traditional thobe, with silver-streaked beard and penetrating eyes. "Ms. Rodriguez," Al-Farsi's accent was mild, his English perfect, "and the remarkable Emma, thank you for coming." As they sat, Al-Farsi studied Emma with undisguised interest. "You are even younger than I imagined on the telephone. 7 languages at 8 years old. Extraordinary." "Thank you, sir," Emma replied in flawless Arabic. Al-Farsi smiled, switching back to English. "A wise woman, your mother." He turned to Nancy. "Ms. Rodriguez, I'll be direct. Robert Davidson contacted me about investing in a Swiss educational program. He specifically mentioned Emma as its star recruit, with himself as her legal guardian." Nancy's breath caught. "He has no right—" "I'm aware," Al-Farsi interrupted gently. "My investigators are thorough. Davidson's behavior concerned me, so I made inquiries." He handed Nancy a folder containing photographs of Davidson meeting with Professor Harlow and Margaret Whitmore, plus legal documents outlining custody transfer procedures. "He's been planning this for months," Nancy whispered. "Since the day Emma answered his phone," Al-Farsi confirmed. "The $866 million deal was genuine, but your daughter's intervention provided Davidson something he values more than money: control over a truly extraordinary asset." "Emma is not an asset," Nancy said sharply. "To you, she is a daughter. To Davidson, he collects potential. It's how he built his empire, finding exceptional talent and binding it to him through debt, gratitude, or legal obligation. Like he tried with me, Nancy realized. The job, the apartment, the school, all creating dependency. Davidson miscalculated with you. He assumed financial need would override maternal instinct. What does he want with Emma? Nancy asked. The Global Youth Initiative appears educational, but functions primarily as a talent pipeline for governments and corporations. Its graduates emerge with unbreakable loyalty to their sponsors. Davidson himself was one such recruit decades ago. Emma spoke up. Is Mr. Davidson a bad man? Al-Farsi considered the question seriously. No, child. He believes he offers opportunity, but his version requires surrendering your freedom to choose your own path. Why are you helping us? Nancy asked. You're Davidson's business partner. I was raised with 7 sisters. Family bonds are sacred in my culture. What Davidson proposes violates principles I hold dear. Al-Farsi leaned forward. I propose an alternative. My foundation needs someone to coordinate translation services, someone with your qualifications. Nancy blinked. You're offering me a job. With appropriate compensation, flexible hours, and access to an international school in London where Emma's gifts would be nurtured alongside children of diplomats. No separation, no Switzerland. What about Davidson? He won't simply let us go. Al-Farsi smiled. Leave Davidson to me, his recording device on Emma. Corporate espionage carries serious penalties. The music box, Emma whispered. Indeed, most unfortunate it recorded his own incriminating conversations as well. Al-Farsi produced a flash drive. You have 24 hours to decide. If you accept, a private jet will depart for London tomorrow evening. As they left, Emma chattering excitedly about London, Nancy's phone buzzed with a text from Davidson. My office, 9 a.m. tomorrow, final decision time. The next morning dawned grey and rainy as Nancy rode the elevator to Davidson's penthouse office. Emma was safely with Sophia, unaware that today would determine her future. Davidson stood at his window, watching rain lash against the glass. He didn't turn when Nancy entered. You missed the emergency board meeting this morning, he said. Khalid Al-Farsi has withdrawn all investments from Davidson International. $866 million gone overnight. I'm sorry to hear that, Nancy said, keeping her voice neutral. Davidson turned, his expression harder than she'd ever seen it. Interesting coincidence. You meet with Al-Farsi, and suddenly my largest investor abandons a highly profitable partnership. Perhaps he discovered something that changed his mind. Like a recording device? Davidson's smile was cold. Yes, I know about your meeting. I know everything, Nancy. He tossed a legal document onto his desk. Custody papers, already filed with the court. Professor Harlow was remarkably cooperative once he understood the stakes. Nancy felt ice in her veins as she scanned the document. James Harlow was asserting paternity and seeking full custody of Emma, citing extraordinary educational needs and mother's interference with educational opportunities. You're a monster, she whispered. I'm a pragmatist, Davidson corrected. Emma's gifts are too valuable to waste. One day she'll thank me for ensuring her potential wasn't squandered. She'll hate you for separating her from her mother. Children adapt. I did. Davidson straightened his tie. The hearing is next week. Given Harlow's standing and the evidence of your interference with Emma's opportunities, I expect a swift resolution. What about Al-Farsi's offer? London would provide everything you claim to want for Emma's education. Under Al-Farsi's influence, not mine. Davidson shook his head. Emma deserves the best. Nancy fought to control her panic. What if I convinced Al-Farsi to reinvest with certain conditions, a compromise? Davidson considered this. Interesting. What conditions? Emma remains with me. No Switzerland. Instead, she attends Carmichael with supplemental instruction. Alfarsi and Davidson International jointly fund her education. And what do I get in this arrangement? Legitimate access to Emma's linguistic abilities for appropriate business purposes. With my supervision and reasonable limitations, Davidson studied her calculatingly. Alfarsi's reinvestment would need to include penalties for early withdrawal, and I'd require documented involvement in Emma's educational planning. I'll speak with him today. Do that. Davidson checked his watch. I have a lunch meeting. If Alfarsi declines, the custody hearing proceeds as scheduled. Outside, rain soaked Nancy as she walked blindly through Midtown. She'd bought time, nothing more. Her phone rang. Alfarsi. Have you decided? He asked. Davidson knows everything. He's filed custody papers with Emma's biological father. This complicates matters but changes nothing. The offer stands. He'll fight us in court. Emma's father has status, connections, and a history he wishes to keep hidden, Alfarsi interjected. My investigators have been thorough. Professor Harlow's cooperation with Davidson was coerced. Given the right assurances, his position might shift. What assurances? Financial security for his legitimate family, discretion regarding his past, and no obligation to participate in his abandoned daughter's life beyond legal documentation. Later, Nancy received a package from Margaret Whitmore containing evidence of the Swiss program's true purpose, creating specialized assets with linguistic and cognitive conditioning. Children separated from families and molded into valuable intelligence and corporate tools. A final video showed Whitmore herself. Ms. Rodriguez, I joined the initiative believing we served gifted children. The truth is darker. Save your daughter. Run. Nancy's phone buzzed with a text from Alfarsi. Harlow has withdrawn the custody petition. Legal documentation confirmed. The way is clear. She glanced at the clock, 3:47 p.m., just over 3 hours until the plane departed. Enough time to collect Emma from Sophia's, grab their emergency bags, and escape. London greeted them with typical English drizzle and the promise of a fresh start. Alfarsi had arranged a comfortable flat in South Kensington, walking distance from the International Academy, where Emma would begin classes the following week. 3 days had passed since their hasty departure from New York, and their new life was just beginning to sink in. Mama, look! Is that our new home? Emma pressed her face against the taxi window as they pulled up to a charming Victorian townhouse, its brick facade softened by climbing ivy. Yes, mija. Nancy smiled, though anxiety still knotted her stomach. Davidson's reach was long, and his anger at their escape would be formidable. Their flat occupied the building's second floor, high ceilings and tall windows that filled the space with soft grey light. Modern furniture mixed with vintage pieces, creating a warm atmosphere miles away from the sterile luxury of their Manhattan apartment. It's perfect, Emma whispered, running from room to room with excitement. And is that my school uniform? She pointed to a navy blazer hanging on a bedroom door. You start Monday, Nancy confirmed. The school has children from 30 different countries. You'll have language clubs, cultural exchange programs, and friends who won't make fun of me for knowing too much? Emma asked hopefully. Nancy's heart squeezed. Exactly. Being multilingual is normal there. Celebrated even. As Nancy's phone rang with Alfarsi's number, she answered immediately. You're settled? He asked without preamble. Yes, thank you. Emma's thrilled about school. Excellent. Your position at the Linguistic Heritage Foundation begins tomorrow. My assistant will collect you at 9. His tone softened. And Ms. Rodriguez? Davidson has made inquiries in London. Nancy's breath caught. He's looking for us already. As expected, but your documentation lists you as Nancy Vega, a Brazilian-American specialist recruited from São Paulo. Emma is enrolled as Emma Vega. Different paper trail. Will it be enough? combined with legal warnings about harassment and the evidence we possess regarding his recording devices? Yes. Davidson is ambitious, not foolish. The next morning, Al-Farsi's assistant, a brisk Englishwoman named Penelope, escorted Nancy to the Foundation's headquarters near Regent's Park. As multilingual communications director, Nancy would coordinate between field researchers and translation teams, beginning with indigenous languages of the Amazon basin. Meanwhile, Emma flourished at the International Academy. Unlike Carmichael's rigid hierarchy, the Academy embraced diversity. Emma's linguistic abilities earned admiration rather than resentment, and she came home chattering about friends rather than isolation. 3 weeks into their London life, Nancy received an unexpected visitor at the Foundation. She looked up to find Khalid Al-Farsi himself standing in her office doorway. "I'm in London briefly and wanted to see how you're adjusting," he explained. After discussing her work, Nancy asked directly, "Why did you really help us, Mr. Al-Farsi?" If the question surprised him, he didn't show it. "Several reasons. The practical, Davidson's methods concern me. Business requires trust, and men who view people as commodities eventually extend that view to everything." And the personal reasons? 30 years ago, I had a daughter with extraordinary mathematical abilities. My family wished her to attend a special program in Switzerland, the predecessor to Davidson's initiative. Nancy's pulse quickened. What happened? I was young, ambitious, easily convinced by promises of exceptional opportunity. I allowed them to take her. His eyes darkened. 2 years later, they returned a different child. Technically brilliant but emotionally damaged. The connection between us was severed. She works now for a technology firm in Singapore, calls dutifully on holidays, but remains a stranger. "I'm so sorry," Nancy whispered. "When I heard Emma on that phone call, then discovered Davidson's interest in her, I recognized history preparing to repeat itself. You're protecting Emma from your daughter's fate. I'm offering the choice I should have made 3 decades ago, nurturing exceptional abilities without destroying the child who possesses them." 6 months passed in London, bringing crisp autumn, then winter, and finally the first hesitant signs of spring. The Rodriguez women, now officially the Vegas, had settled into rhythms that felt remarkably normal. Nancy's work at the Linguistic Heritage Foundation had expanded to include developing a revolutionary translation algorithm. Emma, now 9, had become one of the International Academy's star pupils, adding Hindi and Japanese to her linguistic repertoire. Davidson had returned to New York after his failed London fundraising venture, his Swiss program jeopardized by mysterious leaks about its true nature. Financial News reported Davidson International struggling with investor concerns and regulatory inquiries about corporate espionage. One morning, Penelope appeared in Nancy's doorway, her typically unflappable demeanor slightly disturbed. "There's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but she's quite insistent." Before Nancy could respond, a woman appeared, elegantly dressed, mid-30s, with striking features that combined Asian and European ancestry. "Ms. Rodriguez," the woman said, using Nancy's real name deliberately, "I'm Sophia Davidson. We need to talk." Nancy's blood ran cold. Davidson's daughter. Once they were alone, Sophia took a seat without waiting for invitation. "You've caused quite the upheaval in my father's life." "Your father tried to take my child," Nancy replied evenly. "Yes, he did. My father's methods have always been problematic, especially regarding gifted children. Why are you here? How did you find me?" "And finding you wasn't difficult. Father keeps meticulous records of his obsessions." Sophia placed a portfolio on Nancy's desk. "I'm trying to prevent a tragedy. My father is dying." "Dying? Pancreatic cancer, terminal, 3 months, perhaps 4. He was diagnosed shortly after you left New York. The prognosis was immediately clear, but he refused to accept it. Nancy felt strangely hollow. I'm sorry for your family, but I don't see how this concerns Emma and me. My father's illness has intensified certain fixations. He speaks of Emma constantly, reviews her files, watches recordings of her speaking different languages. He's convinced she represents his most important legacy. He's still trying to find her. In his more lucid moments, he understands that pursuit is futile, but as the illness progresses, his obsession grows. Sophia opened the portfolio, revealing legal documents barring Davidson from contact with Nancy or Emma, and establishing trusts for Emma's education. Why would he agree to this? Nancy asked. He hasn't. But as his health deteriorates, I've assumed control of Davidson International. These agreements, once signed, will be binding regardless of my father's objections. You're acting against your father's wishes. I'm acting to preserve what remains of his legacy and protect an innocent child from his fixation. Sophia hesitated. I was once in a similar program, in Geneva, not Zurich, but the same approach. You were separated from your family? My mother died when I was 7. Father was building his empire and believed the program offered superior opportunities. Her voice remained steady, but something haunted flickered in her eyes. I was 12 when I returned to New York. Academically advanced, fluent in 5 languages, and completely estranged from my father. I'm sorry, Nancy said softly. With Emma, something different is happening. He sees himself in her story, the gifted child from humble beginnings. He believes he's offering the salvation Jeremiah Davidson once offered him. By destroying her relationship with her mother, Nancy said. Precisely. In his mind, it's a necessary sacrifice for greater opportunity. Sophia tapped the documents. These ensure that fantasy can never become reality, regardless of what happens with his illness. Cherry blossoms floated on spring breezes across London's parks as Nancy walked home from the foundation. 2 years had passed since their escape from New York, since Davidson's daughter had appeared with legal documents ensuring their safety. In that time, Nancy had confirmed through discreet channels that Robert Davidson had indeed died 8 months after Sophia's visit. Life had settled into comfortable patterns. Nancy's translation algorithm had revolutionized the Foundation's work, earning her professional recognition she'd once thought forever lost. At 11, Emma was thriving at the International Academy, her linguistic abilities now encompassing 10 languages. They had built a good life, secure, fulfilling, with opportunities neither had dared imagine during their struggling New York days, which made the message on Nancy's phone all the more unsettling. Urgent meeting requested. Plaza Hotel, London, tomorrow, 2 p.m. K.A. The next day, Nancy entered the Plaza's elegant lobby with a sense of déjà vu. Al-Farsi waited in a private salon, looking older than she remembered, still distinguished, but with deeper lines around his eyes. Ms. Rodriguez, he greeted her. Thank you for coming. Your message sounded urgent, Nancy replied, taking a seat across from him. Indeed. Al-Farsi waited until they were alone before continuing. The Swiss program Davidson championed, it continues, despite his death and the scandals that surrounded it. Nancy felt a cold weight in her stomach. How is that possible? The program has relocated, rebranded, with new financial backers. They still recruit exceptional children worldwide. They've identified another linguistically gifted child in Mumbai, 8 years old, fluent in 6 languages. Nancy's pulse quickened. You want to intervene as you did with Emma? Yes, but I need your help. How? The child's parents are skeptical but tempted by the program's promises. They're educated people with limited resources, much like you were. And you want me to share my experience, the reality behind the promises? Yes, your story could be powerful testimony. Nancy considered the request carefully. For 2 years, she'd focused on building their new life, deliberately avoiding thoughts of Davidson and the Swiss program. The child's name is Priya, Al-Farsi added quietly. She reminds me very much of Emma at that age. The name struck Nancy like a physical blow. Priya, like Emma's friend from school? The same. Your daughter befriended Priya Sharma during a cultural exchange last term. Emma taught her Japanese origami. Priya taught Emma Hindi songs. The program identified Priya through that exchange. Emma's friendship inadvertently brought her to their attention. Oh, God, Nancy whispered, horrified. Emma will blame herself if Priya disappears into that program, which is why we must prevent it. Al-Farsi's tone was gentle but firm. The Sharma family arrives in London tomorrow for a preliminary assessment at what they believe is a prestigious academy. In reality, it's the first step in separation. Nancy agreed to meet the Sharmas, telling them her story, from cleaning Davidson's office to Emma answering the Arabic call, from the initial opportunities to the gradual revelation of Davidson's true intentions. She explained the Swiss program's history of separating gifted children from families, the emotional conditioning designed to transfer attachment from parents to institutional loyalty. The Sharmas listened with increasing concern, their initial politeness giving way to pointed questions. By the meeting's end, they had cancelled their assessment appointment and were exploring alternative options, including the international academy Emma attended. Will the program recruiters simply move on to another child? Nancy asked Al-Farsi later. Perhaps, but each intervention creates difficulty for them, exposes their methods, forces them to work harder to hide their true purpose. Al-Farsi's tone grew thoughtful. Change happens gradually, Ms. Rodriguez. One family, one child at a time. Sunlight streamed through tall windows as Nancy organized papers on her desk, preparing for the Foundation's annual conference. 5 years had passed since their escape from New York, since Davidson's attempt to separate her from Emma. In that time, their London life had evolved from temporary refuge to permanent home. Emma, now 13, had blossomed into a remarkably balanced teenager despite her extraordinary abilities. With 12 languages in her repertoire, she had become the youngest ever student ambassador for the International Academy's Cultural Exchange Program. Nancy's work at the Linguistic Heritage Foundation had expanded dramatically, her translation algorithm earning international recognition. Life had stabilized, wounds had healed, and the shadows of their past had receded, until today's email arrived from Sophia Davidson. Estate matters finalized. Father's personal effects include items concerning E. Please advise regarding disposition. SD. Before Nancy could consider her response, her office phone rang. Ms. Vega, there's a young woman here insisting on seeing you. She doesn't have an appointment. Her name, Layla Al-Farsi. Nancy froze. Al-Farsi's daughter? The one he'd sent to the Swiss program 30 years ago? Send her in. Moments later, a striking woman in her 30s entered Nancy's office. Ms. Rodriguez, she said, using Nancy's original name deliberately. I'm Layla Al-Farsi. I know of you through your father, though we've never met. My father speaks highly of you and your daughter. He considers your case his most important intervention against the program. Your program, Nancy observed quietly. Yes. I spent 7 years in the Geneva iteration. Layla explained she and Sophia Davidson had been working together for 3 years, and that Davidson had kept extensive research on Emma's linguistic development. The items Davidson kept, their research. Extensive documentation of Emma's linguistic development, patterns your teaching methods established, theoretical frameworks based on her acquisition speed. He continued studying her even after we left. He became obsessed with understanding the source of her abilities. Not for exploitation, but genuine scientific inquiry. His illness changed him. Layla produced a tablet showing Davidson's final project, a comprehensive educational methodology for teaching multiple languages simultaneously to young children, based on the techniques Nancy used with Emma. He called it the Rodriguez method, Layla continued. It's designed to be implementable by any parent, regardless of economic resources. He named it after me. His notes indicate he came to believe the crucial element in Emma's development wasn't genetic predisposition or even your linguistic expertise. It was the emotional connection between you, the love and security that created optimal learning conditions. Layla and Sophia had been working to transform what remained of the program, preserving educational excellence while eliminating family separation. Davidson's research provided scientific foundation for their reforms. We want your participation, Ms. Rodriguez. Your expertise, your experience. We've identified another child with linguistic abilities similar to Emma's. Instead of separating him from his family, we want to implement the Rodriguez method with the family as primary facilitators. That evening, Nancy discussed the developments with Emma. To her surprise, Emma had researched Davidson herself the previous year. Mr. Davidson realized you were right all along, Emma observed, that separating kids from their parents was wrong. It seems so, yes. Then you should help them, Mama. If it helps other kids like that boy, or like Priya when those people tried to recruit her. You knew about Priya. She told me her parents almost sent her to a special school, but changed their minds after meeting Emma's mom. Emma smiled. I figured it out eventually. That's why we moved to London, isn't it? Because someone wanted to separate us. Nancy looked at her daughter, confident, balanced, compassionate despite her extraordinary abilities, and felt a wave of gratitude. Davidson had seen Emma's languages as assets to be developed. Nancy had seen them as bridges to understanding. Both perspectives held truth, but only one had preserved what mattered most, the connection between mother and daughter that had proven more powerful than any billionaire's influence. We've got options, Nancy agreed, smiling, and we'll face them together, just like always.